Welcome to today's career session with My Mate in HR. Today, Lisi and I are talking to Vicky Canham, who is a career coach and has also got a history within learning and had a very interesting career to date. I met Vicky when I was working with her in HSBC many moons ago, and she's kindly come on today to discuss her career with us. So thanks for coming, Vicky.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. So obviously we were interested in hearing about your career. So I guess what would be great is to understand a bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I actually started my career in hospitality. My brother-in-law was a butcher, and we started out working in his butchery from a very young age during our school holidays, and really enjoyed the culinary side of things. And when I finished school, I went to hotel school, and I also completed a professional cookery qualification. And I then went to work in hospitality a bit, and then got into the education side of things, which was higher education, which was very interesting way of getting into L&D, but I moved to the UK. That was all in South Africa, and I moved to the UK in 2005. And then upon arriving in the UK, I found that I actually really liked the training and development side of things a lot more. So I went into training and development for the hospitality industry in information systems, where we were doing software as a service and providing solutions to restaurants, hotels and bars on how to manage their inventory and their staff electronically. So that was a very interesting part of it. But to some degree, I think I always realized I was never going to stay in the hospitality industry. So I kind of took it into more the IT side of things, where I was an information management trainer for Transport for London. So I worked for Surface Transport, and I also worked for London Underground, where I was doing lots of their 2P from Silverlink across to Overground, training their staff and how to use information systems, which was actually really good. It was probably my best job so far, actually, because it was just so much fun. From there, I then went into financial services, and I went to Thomson Reuters, at which point I was doing business objects and CRM training for them. And because of that, that led me into working for banks. And while working for the banks, where we met, I discovered I actually quite enjoyed the regulatory side of things. So from there, moved into financial crime compliance as well as regulatory compliance. And that's pretty much what I've been doing for the last 10 years, is the compliance side of things. But most recently, I found that actually my life's greatest passion is to help people find what they're supposed to be doing with their life. So that's how I moved into career coaching. So that's where we are now.
So you said you started training on the hospitality, and then you got into the kind of training side of it. How did you make that transition? What was it that, what was it you did to kind of go, okay, well, I've kind of trained down here, but now I'm going to go and do this?
So my mother always said to me, firstly, you finish your education. She said, I don't care what you do after that, but you finish your education. And she said, and if you can turn it into a degree, it'll be much better for you when you move abroad or choose to move on. And so I did. I added an extra year and turned it into an education degree.
Right, okay.
So I've got a Bachelor of Education for post-school adult education. But it was actually during my industry practice, I was working at the Millennium Stadium for 6 months. Well, I was working in the UK for 6 months, but they sent me to Millennium Stadium, where I had to train a lot of the staff who'd come in from the Welsh Valleys or from Liverpool, etc., on how to do silver service, because a lot of them had never even heard of it. So we were doing silver service in the Welsh Rugby Union suite, and it was just so refreshing to come across people who were so eager to learn, and then realizing you were actually, I was 19 at the time, and I was changing people's lives. And it was just from then I kind of fell in love with the learning side of things, being an educator.
And so obviously you then kind of found that passion for, I guess, kind of helping people develop their career into the coaching side. And again, how did that kind of transition happen? So what were the steps you had to take in order to then go, okay, well, I'm kind of pivoting slightly now?
I think as an educator, you're always coaching to some degree. You don't want to be full on hands-on the job training people, but you're always, as soon as you're leading people, you're coaching, mentoring them. And the more that I saw people progress in their careers or find what they actually wanted to do or get promotions or actually become top of their game, it was when I realized that coaching and mentoring was what I was meant to be doing. So.
Do you still enjoy, because obviously, you know, I know that there's, you've got many strings to your bow. Certainly at the moment you're doing, you know, you're obviously doing a lot of the coaching, but you also still do, I think, a bit of a passion for learning. And I think you're finding ways to balance that, which is always quite difficult to do. So how are you kind of managing to keep all of the things that you're really passionate about kind of balanced?
Being multi-passion, I'm going to say, is quite stressful sometimes because I mean, I've studied coaching, I've studied the education side of things, I've done marketing, I've done personal training. Kind of when I find an interest in something, I have to learn more about it. So I go off and I have a passion for teaching as well as the learning. So I'm always learning something. So it's trying to balance it all. But I think in the coaching side of things, you get to put it all into one package, because somebody may come to you for career advice, but then maybe their health isn't great. So we can look at that as well. It's just because I title myself as a career coach doesn't mean I can't do the other things. So it's supporting people. So somebody may come to me and say, I want to open a business. And then, great, well, I've got the marketing, so I can help you with that as well. So we can look at your whole life as part of your career coaching, or we can just look at getting you to the next best thing in your career.
It's really interesting. Yeah.
Can I ask, when did you take the coaching full time, and when did you decide to do that, to make that your sort of full-time role?
I was contracting at HSBC for, I think it was the 5th contract with them, and it was becoming pretty clear that one of us in the team was going to have to leave. And I thought, well, you know what, I want to go and do this anyway. So in 2017, I just handed in my notice and went off and started coaching full time. It wasn't necessarily the smartest decision to do it 100% full time, but because I did eventually go back into contracting for I did 2 different contracts in that time to just made this a bit of a side hustle. So it was the end of 2019 when I made it full time, properly full time, and haven't looked back really. Because
if you can you just share for people, because I know you're very active on Instagram, you're very active on Pinterest with your coaching stuff. So if they were looking for you, what's the company that they'd need to search for?
So my company is called Ahead Together.
Yeah, because I love your Pinterest stuff, because I have to admit, I think because I'm doing the HR business side of it, you know, you've talked to me before about Pinterest, and it was almost something I hadn't even thought about, but now I see you on my thread and I love the stuff you're sharing because it's really motivational. And I mean, so how do you constantly, because you're very positive in terms of what you're talking about, in terms of that, and obviously coaching can be quite draining. How do you, from a kind of keeping yourself focused, how do you keep yourself kind of in the right frame of mind to do something like that?
As a complete devotee of coaching, I have my own coaches. So, and it may sound strange as well, but I also have my own personal trainers. So I turn to my coaches as well as any mentors that I may have. They may not even know they are my mentors. Sometimes they just turn to old bosses and get some more input from them. The other thing is I rely heavily on my friends. I have a very good friend circle. So.
What would you say was your most challenging career moment?
I had a very challenging contract with a manager that I don't want to give them an agenda because that'll make it obvious then.
Was it me? Because I was only there for a couple of months. So I think it wasn't me.
I had a manager who I think just their goal was to make everybody miserable. We had a thing on Fridays called Fire Me Fridays. So if you got called into the office at 3 o'clock on a Friday, a good chance you were going to be fired. And the one Friday I was called in at 3:30 and the whole floor went ooh as I walked down the passageway. I'd done nothing wrong. So I was like, well, this is a bit ominous. But anyway, every week was like this. You felt like that. And that particular week, actually, I was being called in to be taken out for a drink. So that was a bit of a surprise. But to go to work every week and think I might get fired this week for who knows what reason, it was.
Yeah, that's awful.
How long were you there for?
Yeah, just under 10 months, actually 10 months. But I delivered my whole program in record time.
So in some respects, you had the unintended consequence of making you even. Yeah, that sounds horrible.
On the flip side, what's been your sort of career highlight or your best moment?
I have had some bosses who've just been fantastic, who have probably just taken inordinate amounts of time away from their own families just to give guidance and extra information. Some of them are like surrogate parents because they've just been so good, and I've built really great relationships with people at work, and it's yeah, I think probably all the relationship building over the years is the highlight of it, and it's probably the one thing about working for yourself that's a little bit hard to get over, is that you don't have that camaraderie and the relationship, so you have to build them with other business owners. So I think that's a really big highlight for me.
Yeah.
Do you, if you were to, I don't know, give yourself, your 18-year-old self, a call, what would you be saying to them? What would be the advice?
Whatever you choose doesn't have to be permanent. So I think when I was 18, I had this plan mapped out that I was going to go to university. I was going to get my qualification. I was going to get a really good job. I was going to be married and have kids and settle down at 28. And when I look back at that now, that is the funniest thing, because I've done none of those. And it just, I think we're raised to think that 28 is so old. Oh, so young.
Yeah.
Nothing
just
you can move the dot at any point. You don't have to stick with that one thing. Being multi-passionate, as most of us are, most entrepreneurs are, you can try any of those things. Try one thing for a year. If it doesn't work out, try something else. I think it's really important to focus on what you're doing now and give it everything, but don't think I have to be doing this in 20 years' time. But you don't.
Yeah.
Well, I think
so being open-minded then.
Definitely.
Well, I think, yeah, do you know, I mean, you know, when I was 12, I was going to be an international superstar. Then at 16, I was going to be a forensic psychologist. Then at 20, I was going to be a lawyer. And somehow I ended up in HR. And then, you know, you think you're going to work in big businesses forever, and suddenly I'm an independent. And now we're doing something very different as well. And I think you're right. I think as a child, you think you've got this there's a plan. And then you realize adults don't really have plans. They just kind of, you know, there's about being adaptive and not, you know, one of our previous people we spoke to was saying, you know, do something that makes you happy. And if it doesn't make you happy, stop.
Yeah, life's too short.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously you've got both personal experiences of a career, but also given your job now, is there a kind of top career or life hints you can give to people listening and things you think people should kind of keep in mind?
I think a big one would be to believe in your ability to figure things out. Not to jump on Marie Forleo's bandwagon here, but I think that people give themselves a hard time and they think that things are more difficult than they are, but you know, you're not going to have an idea if you're not capable of figuring it out and getting to the end goal. So if you are a lawyer and you want to be an international superstar, I mean, now it's easier than ever with TikTok, etc., to get in front of people. So there's always that ability to figure things out. Sorry about that. And then I guess, and then with momentum comes progress. So I think in terms of career coaching clients, they can often stagnate in their career search, and they sometimes almost want to blame it on their career coach or the people that they're working with. And the trouble with that is I can't apply for the jobs for them. So I think so long as you are taking the action and there is momentum there, you will get the result that you're looking for. And the other one is, don't be afraid of reaching out to your network. For some reason, people are reluctant to put on LinkedIn what they're looking for to send out, you know, I think they call them flare messages, where you're saying, well, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm looking for, can you guys help me? Because that's what your network is there for. So I think being afraid of using a LinkedIn network or your other networks is probably the biggest mistake you can make at the moment.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I always think, because I always notice you're very good at having a network and maintaining your network as well. So probably more than any person, you are in contact with so many people who you've worked with over the years. How important do you think that network, that ability to network, is in kind of developing a career? Then it sounds like it's kind of one of the key things you think people should think about.
I think it's fundamental. If I had to go back into banking now, I would be able to assemble a team of 20 business analysts overnight from people I've worked with before, not because they're friends, but because some of them are just ex-colleagues, but they're excellent employees and excellent business analysts, for example. So I think the network, if you don't take the time to get to know people and what they do and how they fit into organizations, then you put yourself on the back foot. Additionally, by networking with people that you work with, you find skills that you don't necessarily know that they had. So if somebody works in business risk and controls, for example, you don't know that they were actually a graphic designer, so they can solve your graphic design problems overnight if you're making them something. So I think by networking, you can solve their problem as well as your own. And I mean, there's fundamentally part of being human is networking and sharing knowledge and skills with each other. So.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Yeah, I think networks are so important. And I mean, certainly I know going into a freelancing lifestyle, networks, I think to a degree, it's something you probably don't appreciate enough. You get your networks when you're in a business and you network within that business, but it's only when you kind of step out of that, you really start to see the benefit, or as you say, when you want to make a change. Finally then, what are your plans for the future?
So I'm spending quite a lot of my time actually building courses at the moment, going back to my first love of learning. I haven't decided whether or not I'm just going to focus on the coaching side of things, or if I'm actually going to take it into the food and health and wellness side as well. But so mainly I'm doing one-on-one career coaching and courses.
Okay, cool. Any
Brilliant.
final thoughts or anything you just think if people walk away with one message from your journey, what would you want that to be?
Don't be embarrassed to start small. We all have to start somewhere. And if you're going to worry about what other people think about you and the fact that you're starting small and you're starting at the beginning, you're never going to get anywhere. So just take that first step.
Just crack on. Brilliant. Thank you very much for speaking to us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Vicky.
Brilliant. Thank you.